Now, we can't always start young because maybe we've adopted an older cat, or maybe you're like I was with my two previous cats, Nomar and Mia. I didn't know any better. And I know we talked a little bit about this on our summit interviews, but I fed them kibble for the first 12 to 13 years of their life. They just had dry kibble. So, say somebody's been feeding their cat a dry kibble for the last 10 years, or they adopted an older cat, and that's all that cat was fed in their previous home. But maybe finally ready to upgrade our cat's diet. Where do we start then? I know you mentioned a little bit about make the transition gradual, but let's say we've been eating all kibble. Where do we go next to upgrade?
S So, honestly, it just depends on the cat. Like, there are some cats that really do wanna eat everything, and so if this kitty has been trying to steal things off of your dinner plate, then they're gonna be able to transition a lot faster. So, what I generally suggest is to go from kibble to canned food, and the reason is that most kibble is extremely high in carbohydrate. If you're using like a freeze dry raw or something like that, that's almost all protein, good on you. That's going to make it easier to transition because part of what happens to cats when they're eating a diet that has a lot of starchy carbs is they become sugar addicts, just like
Mm,
us. And so switching from starchy carb based kibble to a raw food is going to be like, no, because they don't have that taste for just meat. So what I would suggest is go from dry to canned, and then from canned to whatever your end goal is, whether that's raw, whether it's cooked, and be patient. So if you've got a cat that eats everything that's not nailed down, it'll take you maybe a month. I had a cat that, as I was learning years ago in 2006, it took us literally 6 months to transition her from dry to canned, and then another 3 months to transition from canned to cooked. And it just you have to be patient. So literally with Romy, we started out with a quarter teaspoon of the canned food in the dry food and just kind of kept gradually headed off to the side, moved it toward the center over the time. And then, once she was eating it in the center, she's starting to eat it. Then we started adding a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, and taking away the kibble as we went. And then same process, switching from canned to cooked. And, it is a process, and you have to be patient.
yeah. My parents must have fed me a carb heavy, starchy diet as a kid because I still have the kind of the addiction for sugar, I think. But you said cats get that same feeling, right? They want those carbs.
Exactly. Exactly, yeah.
Um, so for somebody that is feeding their cat a kibble diet, which I was, and I feel like I was fortunate because once I transitioned my two previous cats from kibble after 12 to 13 years over to can, it was an easy transition, and I felt like they enjoyed the wet food like immediately. And like you said, it's cat dependent, right? Some cats are pickier eaters than others, but I started saying like, gosh, they're eating canned food like it's ice cream to a human. They're eating it just enjoyably. Is there actually because I've actually gotten this question, some myself. Is there a canned wet cat food that you would recommend, or are there some that are better than others? If we are feeding wet food in a can, what do we look for?
So, the main thing you're looking for is that there aren't starchy carbs in it,
Okay.
and that so if you're going down the ingredient list, and there's meat, and there's meat, and there's meat, and there's more meat, and then there's maybe some veggies and maybe some fat. Outstanding.
Okay.
But if you're going down the list and it's meat and then peas and then beans and then rice and then you're feeding mostly starchy carbs. So that's what you need to really look for. Just like on human food labels, the order of the ingredients is the sort of the rough percentages of um, how much each ingredient constitutes in the can. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
Good.
Yeah, so you wanna really look at, like, the first several ingredients to see that's gonna kind of make up the most of the content of the food. All right, Dr. Ruth, I'm going to have you take a look at my current cat's diet. Because,
Okay.
so I want to be honest here, like this is a
Right on.
show that I'm doing, and people are at different stages of their cat's nutrition here. So I am currently not feeding my cats food that I made or raw food. So I am using a couple of things. And so I wanted to just share this with you, and you can tell me maybe what to look for or what might be the next step to upgrade. So this is a canned food from Open Farm. It is a wet food. It's a pate, humanely raised, sustainably sourced ingredients, animal welfare certified. So the first few ingredients: chicken, chicken broth, salmon, chicken liver, tapioca, pudding, and natural flavors. So that's the first few ingredients. In addition to that, I also from Open Farm, this is a harvest chicken rustic blend. This is also humanely raised, sustainably sourced, human grade food. So this is
Right
human
on.
grade food. And the ingredients here are chicken, chicken broth, pumpkin, spinach, coconut oil, carrots, red lentils, sunflower oil. And this actually says human grade, can be used as a complete meal or a topper, and it contains 82% moisture. So I know we didn't say too much about with Kibble, they're not getting enough moisture in their food. Then we have a
Right on.
complete probiotics that I'm using from Jackson Galaxy, and then of course, saving the best for last. You know this product, the Omega Pause. This is Dr. Ruth product here. So that's
Right
what
on.
I'm currently feeding my cat. So a couple sources of food from the same company and a couple supplements, omegas, and probiotics. So, first of all, how would you assess that diet for my cats? Second of all, where could I begin to upgrade, whether it's toppers or going into gently cooked food? What would you think here?
So I think, so those are actually, that's a great brand and you've done a good job. One thing that I do like to make sure of is that we're feeding a food with only one protein source, ideally per
Okay.
per can or
Yeah.
whatever, or per package, right?
Because this one said chicken and salmon. So this is the first time I got this one. And usually I
Right
get
on.
turkey or chicken, but yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. Why one
And the
protein source?
Well, because if we get in these habits, right, of feeding the same thing over and over and over again,
Yeah.
and so we end up developing food sensitivities, or cats or dogs do, and we do too, for that matter. And so it's important to separate the proteins out and rotate through proteins on a regular basis, regardless of how you're feeding, whether it's commercial food, commercially prepared raw, commercially prepared uh, gently cooked, or whether you're making it yourself, because that way you're going to help your cat's gut stay healthier. And then the other thing is that the second version, is that like a frozen type deal? The
This
stuff in
was
the carton?
no, this is not frozen. The
Mhm.
consistency is almost like pumpkin. Um,
Okay.
and after you open it, you store it in the fridge, and it can be used as a complete meal or a topper, it says.
Okay.
So yeah.
And so the thing that's in there is lentils, but it's way down the ingredient list. And the reason that's actually a good thing is that is an incredible source of fiber. So in both of those foods, there's not a lot of vegetable material. And that's important to have a healthy gut. So the fiber is important, but also, and I think the second product had some carrots in there too.
Yes.
But also, we want to feed the rainbow to some degree, because the colors are polyphenols, and some of them have benefits. Some of the constituents of colored vegetables have benefits to us, but really the polyphenols are what feed the microbiome and help to keep it optimal. So if you were going to start to shift away from this or try to upgrade, one of the things I'd caution you about is canned foods, and I'm not quite clear on how that second one is processed, are generally cooked in the cans, and the
Mhm.
can has a plastic liner. And so two things happen. One is plastics go from the liner into the food. so microplastics, nanoplastics. And then the second thing is that cooking process actually creates an extremely high level of advanced glycation end products or AGEs. And indeed, these chemicals create aging. And in fact, that's part of how we um, can slow down the kidney disease process is if we use something like quercetin to reduce the deposition of advanced of AGEs on the kidney cells. So, first step, add some more veggies. I mean, you were telling me you've got two young kitties and they'll eat almost anything that's presented to them. So I would look for, if you want to stay with commercial food, look for something like, goodness gracious, I think they're delving into cat foods. Evermore has a really great product, Raised Right. So these are frozen, prepared, gently cooked diets that include a lot of vegetables along with high quality protein products. And then if you've got time to cook and if you've got enough freezer space, as I know you're doing quite a bit of traveling, you could do something like crock-pot diet, or if you wanna take the leap into raw, get connected with something like Feed Real Institute and do um, their raw course, or Dr. Ian Billinghurst has an amazing course as well.